So it's been a few months since you guys have seen my full pedal board, at least here on YouTube. Maybe on Instagram you've seen a little picture of it. But this is what it looks like at the moment. At the beginning of the year, maybe January or February, I did a new pedal board build with this beautiful Alder and Ash board, and that board was incredible. And this is very similar, really. It has a lot, in fact, all of the same ideas going on, just with a few pedals swapped out. As you can see as well, from compared to that board at the beginning of the year, this is much more crammed in. I kind of bought the big board in the first place to have more space for my feet. Inevitably, it hasn't ended up that way. I've obviously tried to cram as much as I can onto this board. And you know what? I'm happy with it. This board stays at home pretty much. I have other rigs and setups that I would take out for rehearsals or gigs. We also have 4 pedals underneath, which are controlled with the gig rig Quartermaster. So we have my fuzz pedal, or one of my fuzz pedals on the board, which is under here, it's the Espresso Effects Fuzzbender Mark II, Mythos Argo underneath as well, Cali 76, and the Ryra clone. Let's just quickly talk about the new additions which weren't on that first board. First of all, we have up on the top right, we have the NRG Effects Pura. Really new addition for myself, but one that I've completely fallen in love with is the Thorpe Effects Pulse Doppler. This behemoth here, the Microcosm Hologram Electronics, sort of has replaced my Chase Bliss Mood. Another very new addition is the GFI Systems Rossi. Les Paul Junior with Sunbear Pickups P90, which is ripping at the moment. Into the Victory VC35 Copper, which is different. Usually previously I was running into the Duchess. At the moment we're running into the Copper, which, I'll be honest with you, sounds awesome, but does throw up a few issues with this board that I'm still getting used to. Firstly, how it plays with fuzz pedals. Haven't found the sweet spot with the copper and fuzz. I think that's traditionally kind of typical with an AC30 type amp. You know, they're not really designed to use with fuzz pedals. They're more of a drive amp, a boost amp, whereas, you know, the Duchess takes anything in front of it. So first in the chain is now actually the Broadcast. I'm just sort of using it to boost the overall tone of guitar. So it really depends what vibe I'm going for. If I'm playing rock music, for example, I will probably leave the red side on all the time. If I'm kind of playing ambient stuff, I'll leave it off. So this is the clean signal with just a little bit of reverb from the Flint. And then with the Broadcast, beefing things up a little. It has that desky crunch to it, which is not very natural, but sounds great in my opinion. I really like it. Next we're going into the Quartermaster, and the first loop in the Quartermaster is that Espresso Effects Fuzzbender Mark II. And as I said previously, this is sort of where I've been having a little bit of a learning curve using fuzz with the copper. I posted a video of my top 5 fuzz pedals, and the Fuzzbender was featured in that. And actually that video is the first time I played that pedal through this amp. And a couple of people commented, doesn't sound great. And you know what, looking back, it does not sound as good through the copper as it does through the Duchess. But I'm working with it, I'm trying to get the best tone out of it, and I'm still loving this fuzz pedal. It probably is still my favourite fuzz. So it still sounds pretty good in my opinion. It does have a little bit of sizzle on it with the copper that it doesn't have with the V40, and it's just a thing. It's just a thing. Next we have the Argo in the loop. I wouldn't usually play the Argo with this type of guitar. I usually only play the Argo if the guitar's got a neck pickup, but we'll give it a quick go anyway with the tone rolled off. Actually, that sounded pretty good. Next up we have the compressor, the Carry 76. I'm using it to level out my notes, really actually to play with the Rossi, to give the envelope filter a more level playing field when it comes to ramping up those kind of filtered sounds. But this is what it sounds like on its own. Cool. Next up we have the Rossi, and kind of my usual sound is just a simple envelope, kind of a low sensitivity envelope. It's positioned kind of this late on in the signal chain because I'm using my Strat, for example. The Strat's pickups are so low output that even on the high sensitivity on the Rossi, it's still only just triggering the envelope. So I'm kind of using either the compressor or the broadcast to boost the signal into the envelope filter from a Strat. But with this guitar, slightly more pokey pickup, it doesn't need it. And this is what the envelope sounds like. Another cool trick up the Rossi's sleeve is the step filter, which I'm having some fun with. I didn't think I'd use it at all, but it is a lot of fun for kind of creating rhythmical, almost dancey tracks. It's really cool. You get the picture. Maybe I'll show that off in a little bit, kind of using it with some reverb and some delay. Can create some really huge sounds. It's really cool. Next up in Loop 5 of the Quartermaster is the Protein, the trusty Protein. You guys know I like this thing. Blue side sounds like this. Green side. Both sides. And then next, in the last loop of the Quartermaster, is the clone underneath the board, or the clone, sorry, from Ryra, Rock Your Repaired Amp. I'm using this as sort of a low gain boost. It's got a bit of character going on and a bit of crunch. As a bit of a solo boost, but really with this amp setup, it's kind of more pushing it into a bit more overdrive than giving it a volume boost. And this is what it sounds like. And then out of the Quartermaster, we're going into the Tuna, the Chromatic TU3. Been loving that tuner for a long time. I have the buffer on at the moment because it's kind of after all the buffer sensitive pedals. Then we're going from the Tuna into the Pura up here. Like I said earlier, kind of a new favourite of mine. It takes pedals in front of it better than any overdrive I've ever tried. But on its own, it is a two-sided overdrive. I have one as sort of a low-medium gain, and then the second side as more of a volume boost with a little more gain. This is what one side sounds like. Awesome sounding drive. I like it because it sounds like the guitar and amp. It's not putting its own sort of character on the sound. It's just a great transparent overdrive. Next up, the pulse Doppler. And I love this modulation pedal. It gives me a phaser and a vibrato sound just with a click of a switch. This is the phaser sound that I've settled on. And if I click the switch, we get more of a vibrato type sound. Yeah, I'm pretty obsessed with that. I've actually been kind of guilty of leaving that vibrato sound on all the time because it sort of disappears when you play harder, and then you start to hear it and notice it as you play more delicately. And I love that about vibrato in general, and this is a killer pedal. Next up, I think, is down into the jam pedals. Delay Llama Extreme. A great all-around sort of analog delay. I'm not really using many of the craziest sounds in it. I'm using it as a straight up replacement to almost like a DM2 type sound. No modulation, just a great analog delay. So as you can hear, I'm actually surprised myself. There's more repeats on there than I thought there was. And that's what I love about analog delay. It just sort of sits back. You don't have to worry about it too much. It's just on the edge of oscillation, that as well. Sounds great. As good as it gets, in my opinion. The other sounds sound great in it, but really I'm just using it simply. Next, we're going up into sort of the heart of the board, I guess. The meat and potatoes is over. This is where things get interesting. And this is the tri-parallel mixer from Electro Harmonics is the one. You guys, hopefully you know what the tri-parallel mixer is. I'm yet still to do a video on it. I'm almost using it as a wet amp setup with one amp in a way. So I'm using it to mix together all my wet effects. Come on, get to the point. So in channel 1, I have the Boss DD200 as a bit of a delay monster. Then I have it in channel 2, or parallel loop 2, the Dr. Atmosphere for, actually that's 100% wet, so all 100% reverb effects. And then finally in loop 3 is the microcosm for weirder stuff. And because they're all in parallel, it allows you to blend all three of them together in a more cleaner way, I guess. You know, neither one is messing the other one up or whatever. Neither one is feeding the other. Maybe we will play a little something and I will add each one as we go. Let's start with just the microcosm. Yeah, let's do this. That's probably not the best demo of what this board is set up to do. It's kind of set up for things to build over time and for me to just sit in a dark room and just make noises for a long time, not for 2 minutes. So things get weirder than that and kind of more out there than that. That's kind of the weird brain of this board. The rest is kind of pretty meat and potatoes, like I said. And finally we're going into the Flint. Flint I've got as my always on spring reverb. The copper compresses that reverb more than the Duchess does, and I don't dislike it. It makes the reverb much more prominent, but somehow still managed to stay out the way. I think that's probably credit to the Flint and the amp sort of working together really nicely. I think that sounds natural, sort of the reverb compressing and maybe even distorting a little bit in the front end of the amp. That's a good point to make actually, Jackson. All of this is run into the front end of the amp. I'm not an effects loop guy. One cable in, one cable out. Sorted. I also have a little harmonic tremolo, but to be honest, since getting the pulse Doppler, I've not used it too much, but I still love this harmonic tremolo. And that's pretty much the essence of the board. I guess the ideas have relatively stayed the same since the board at the beginning of the year. Just things have been added and changed, and now it is again found its way to be a pretty unusable board in a live situation. I don't know, maybe not. To be honest, I'd probably be more likely to gig with something like my HX Stomp these days anyway, so this, I'm fine with leaving this as such a huge board. Crammed board as well. A few things to note: I'm pairing this all with the Truetone Onespot CS12 and a Cioks 4 coming out of the AC output of the CS12. I'm really at the limit of what I can power. I've got a lot of high current pedals, but as far as I can tell, everything is fine, everything is clean, everything is getting good power. All the cables are Pedal Patch UK solderless kits, and a few loaded for bear kind of 6-inch patch cables thrown in there as well. Board is, as always, the Alder and Ash board, which is beautiful and I still love it. This board is killer. I'm inspired every day when I pick up the guitar and plug into this board. Thanks guys for checking out the video. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe and maybe check out some more. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys.